Welcome back, everyone, to the Writer's Parachute. We're guiding author and writer dreams to a perfect landing. Today, we have with us another very special guest. She is an author and writer in multiple genres. It's Cheryl Pena. We're going to be talking to her about her 4 books, primarily The House of Wind Lift. But of course, we're going to do our housekeeping first. Of course, we would love for you to hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe on YouTube or whatever platform you're listening to us from. We'd love for you to follow us on social media. You can follow us at Writer Parachute. That's Writer Parachute with no S on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and now Threads. So go check that out. But as always, we start out with our topic of the week, and I want to thank Cheryl for introducing this topic about reviews. We've been focusing season 2 on reviews, how to get reviews, what kinds of reviews, what to do with reviews, how to maximize your reviews, all of that. So Cheryl had an interesting topic. She wanted to know how to find reviewers from her readers, which is a good question because oftentimes we depend on friends and family and other authors to write reviews, and that's not going to lift you in exactly the way that you want. You want your actual readers, the people who choose your particular genre for their reading time, to be writing reviews because they can speak to other readers in that genre. So as I mentioned in the green room to Cheryl, the romance writers are very good and very effective at this. Used to be that romance was kind of a dirty little secret. People wouldn't admit that they read romance books. So, but they were very effective at marketing it and specifically marketing their fans. So they have created street teams or tribes or follow groups where a lot of times they will go on social media platforms. Quite mostly is Facebook. They create private Facebook groups where they invite their fans and followers to come in. They give them early access to books and works that they're working on. They talk to them about names of characters, about character traits. They often will do contests where they're offering a drawing for people doing reviews. I am going to caution you there. Make sure you go read the Amazon community guidelines about reviews and what you can and cannot offer in exchange for a review. But I'm telling you, this is what they do. So be very cautious and very careful at what you're doing here. You can give them a free copy of your book in exchange for a review. You cannot ask for a good review or a particular kind of review, like a 5-star review or a 4-star review or anything of that nature. You can ask for an honest review. Depending, again, how you word it, how you present it, this is something that you can do. Do a drawing for a gift card, for a free signed copy of your book, multiple things, naming a character after someone or letting them choose a character name or a trait or a storyline or something like that. These are very effective tools, and it gets you to your specific audience. Those are the kind of reviewers that you want. Also, reaching out to book clubs is very effective. Reach out to specific book clubs of your genre. There are all kinds of groups on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and now on Threads and TikTok that are talking specifically about, let's say, a science fiction book or thrillers or crime. There are all kinds of those out there. Reach out to those. Also, we're a podcast here, but don't forget about the other podcasts. There are many podcasts that specifically focus on a type of genre, especially crime. A lot of fantasy and sci-fi and thrillers and that sort of thing, romance, so next time you're searching for something new or interesting to do, start looking for things associated with your specific genre. Also, maybe think about starting a book club or book group at your local library and see if you can get more interest and more elevation. It's all about reaching out to the people who love the kinds of books that you read. So, or that you write. So check that out next time. Of course, there's so much more that we could talk about this topic. And if you would like to know more, if you would like for us to dedicate an episode talking about this specific topic, please reach out to us. You can leave us a note in the comments section where you are listening or watching now, or you can reach out to us at thewritersparachute.com. Or, of course, you can reach out to me on social media. So I would be happy to talk more about it. But, of course, we need to get on to the show because we have a great guest for you today. We have Cheryl Pena. She is an author, sci-fi thriller suspense writer. We have her 4 books that we're going to talk about, specifically The House of Wind Lift, 2 books from the Descent of the Vial series, book 1, Descent of the Vial, book 2, The Blood Hotel, and then her new one, The Chimera Gambit. Did I pronounce that right?
It's Chimera.
But, Chimera. I will finish by the end of the show. But we're so thankful that Cheryl is here. She was born in as a Hispanic American father and a British American mother in San Antonio, Texas. She developed an early interest in books and literature, winning first place in the National Language Arts Olympiad when she was 11 years old. Wow, congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
She graduated with honors BFA in 2000 and worked as a photographer for a couple of years, eventually settling in as a legal secretary. On the death of her twin sister, she decided to write professionally in her sister's honor. What a great way to honor your sister. Welcome to the Writer's Parachute, Cheryl. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm glad to be here. So
I'm so glad to have you here. We don't get a lot of books in this genre, or somebody that's so prolific in different genres. So
yeah.
glad to have you here. I get a lot of children's authors. I get self-help. I try to cover all the bases, but you're kind of covering several bases all by yourself.
I suppose so, but mostly sci-fi. I think it's weird, but I have always been interested in sci-fi ever since I was really, really young. And I think some of it was because my mother interested in me in Star Trek when I was really, really little. And so we would watch reruns of Star Trek every Saturday night. It came on. And we watched The Prisoner with Patrick McGowan. Lots of sci-fi, Star Wars, some, but not as much as Star Trek. We're just always watching lots of that stuff. And then I think when I started writing, because I was writing at like 3, but they were just silly little stories, little kids stories, but they weren't anything I was considering doing anything with, of course. But in junior high, I really started writing seriously and submitting to contests and stuff. And all my ideas were sci-fi stories. So I think it's kind of strange that The House of Wind Lift ended up not being a sci-fi story. But for some reason, it's been received pretty well. Won a couple of awards with that one, so I'm pretty excited about it. But yeah, it's the only suspense thriller I've written.
All right. Well, we'll have to add award-winning author to your introduction next time. So I want to know why this kind of paranoia, seclusion, and mystery are the grit topics that you write about.
I think it's hard to put into words really, but I think that life is strange. I think I kind of had this fascination with perception versus reality at a young age, and I think some of that was because I remember this conversation I had with my mother. I don't remember exactly what I was referencing, but I had said something about do animals realize the way things really are? And my mom looked at me and she said, and I was like 4, so obviously I didn't know what I was talking about really, but my mom looked at me and she said, there's no such thing as the way things really are. Mm-hmm. And that just blew my little 4-year-old mind. I was like, what? And then made me think about it though. I'm like, she's right. Mm-hmm. She's right. It's all perception. Mm-hmm. And so I think that I've been fascinated with the subject ever since. I don't know why. Even my photography dealt with the issue. When I was a photographer, I did perception versus reality stuff a lot. And so it's just, and also I have very vivid dreams, and they're extremely vivid. I mean, and they're all kind of weird sci-fi dreams, which is really strange, but some of them are very dark, and it just seems like it's good fodder for books. I mean, it's why not turn it into something positive, you know? And I'm just one of those people who always had really, really lots of nightmares on growing up, and so I just turned them into something. Try to make something good out of it, you know.
Well, and I love that. My mother always used to say to me, she goes, if you name the monster, it's not scary anymore. So I think
Yeah.
that's what you're doing in your books is you're naming the monster that scared you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you know, here's Fred right here. You know, he's not scary anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. So, can you hold those books up for us? I know that you
Sure.
have them there with you,
So,
and we want to show our audience that's watching on YouTube. So
this is the Chimera Gambit. I don't know if you can see them very
yes,
well.
we can see them.
And there's they're probably not all gonna fit. Maybe I'll put there's the center of the bottle, and there's the Blood Hotel. So
awesome.
you can't see all of them, but that's
they are amazing. Those are beautiful covers, and you can definitely tell that they are a signature look for you. And I love that. People talk about branding. There's an excellent example of her 4 books right there. They're different genres, different topics, but that is her brand.
Yes. So
walk into a bookstore, you know it's her
the difference in this one and like this one. I mean, this definitely looks more sci-fi than this one.
Right.
But there are sort of, it's leaning in the speculative direction, but it's not really speculative. But the other one's definitely more sci-fi. So.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the general look. You walk into a bookstore, you're gonna know it's a Cheryl Pena book.
I hope so.
which is amazing. So I know we got so many books, and we're going to talk a little bit about them, but mostly we're going to focus on the House of When Lift. So what was the inspiration behind the story and that unusual title?
That one, so it was about 35 years ago, maybe 35 years ago. I remember I was tired. I took a nap. When I woke up from the nap, I remember having the title in my head and the basic premise. So, you know, the guy living in a cave that's not a cave, basically. And I had this basic idea that, you know, things weren't what they seemed. And I don't remember, though, if it was an actual dream I had or if the title was in my head and then I came up with the story around it. It might have been the title and then I came up with the story around it, though. But there was definitely a sense of something kind of, you know, eerie coming with it. And then it wasn't just, you know, a house on a hill and some guy living there peacefully and everything is fine. Like, obviously there's more to it than that. So
well, I
would be kind of a boring story, though.
I did love the premise. I was not able to finish it, but what I read so far really kind of drew me in. It was kind of like, wait, what?
I wanted to have plot twists, but I didn't want it to move too quickly. And then I will say the Chimera Gambit moves quicker, so it's a fast-paced read. But the House of When Lift, I kind of had this short story, the Most Dangerous Game. I had that in my head when I was writing that, and it wasn't that I was trying to copy it. It's not the same story at all. But I remember the mood created by that story that I read when I was a teenager, and I had that mood I wanted to create with this one. So,
well, you definitely did an excellent job. I mean, even without finishing my book, finishing the book, I can tell you it definitely creates a mood, and it's one of those that, you know, you're like going, yeah, I'm gonna read to the end of the chapter and then I'm gonna go to sleep, and you're like the chapter, you're like, no, I can't be left hanging here. I gotta go find more out. So,
which is the
best kind of books.
I know, and that's what the reviewer said. So I'm really glad that they said that, because one of them compared it to The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, no way, really? And another one compared it to Hitchcock. I'm like, that's probably pretty good too. A pretty good, you know, as far as pacing. Mm-hmm. So I thought, yeah, that's a pretty good comparison. Although I don't know if it's as good as those, but I'm like, thank you, I appreciate it for sure. But
you know, I read a lot of books, and I do love books that kind of get me to almost relaxed at the end of the chapter, but then they have just this like little hint like
Yeah.
kid of
So
like,
that was,
wait, no, I can't leave that there. It's
yeah,
like I gotta go
definitely
find out what
intentional.
that means.
Yeah, definitely intentional. So, one of the reviewers did mention I left little sort of cliffhangers. They're not real cliffhangers, but little cliffhangers at the end of each chapter.
I find them like little breadcrumbs that leaves you hungry for more.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad people are appreciating that and people like that because one of them said that they read it in one sitting. I'm like, oh, good, yay! So
I did try to
not,
read it in one sitting, but
not
I ended
everybody
up
has that kind of
I
time.
ended up like being
Yeah,
too
not
tired
everybody.
and I fell asleep, and then I was like, I woke up the next morning and I'm like, no, what happened?
I know, and then if you're really lucky, you don't dream about it and then think you read it.
Oh,
So,
yes. Well, that happens a lot too. But
yeah.
I did love the book. So what would you like readers to get from the book? You sort of heard what I got from it, but what would you like
Yeah.
to get from the book?
I think I would like to hear that they read it in one sitting or close, maybe two, is acceptable. Because I think I want to hear that they didn't want to put it down. That makes me happy. I especially love if they like the mood. I just, and not all of my books are as moody as that one, but uh, actually the next two are. But the Chimera Gambit is not. It's kind of more upbeat. But I just think that I want to hear that they enjoy them. I want to hear they love them and didn't want to put them down. I mean, all that stuff is just great. I love hearing all that. So, um, especially if they want to recommend it to other people, that's really great too. So,
Right. Well, and I also kind of got this impression of, sometimes, what is the old saying? Let sleeping dogs lie.
yeah, and I think it was sort of the thing, and I think I talked to some people, some of my readers who, and I don't want to leave any spoilers here, so I don't want anybody if you haven't read it, I'm not going to give anything away. But they had initially thought something along the lines of why are they doing this, and why are they even there, and I think I'm hoping it's clearer than that, but I know that some of them were a little initially like, why are they, bothering this guy? And then they're not really. When you get further into the story, you see they're not.
No, and it's what I thought was so wonderful about the mood you set is it's a common trait we all have. We all have curiosity.
Yeah,
especially
definitely.
about something that seems like it couldn't be possible.
Yes.
And
So
that felt like the jumping off point for me was just that curiosity of, is this really true?
yeah, and I think that's also a big thing about it too, because I did want it to be somewhat unbelievable. Because I know I was of course leaning in the sci-fi direction at the time, but of course this one is not. But I did want it to be somewhat unbelievable. It's kind of like an adventure story in a way, and so I did want there to be some fun involved in reading it as well. So it's not going to be just completely like, oh yeah, well of course I don't want you to guess the end. Obviously I want people to be surprised, but yeah. So I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, that's sort of what I felt sort of from the beginning was is they were drawn there by the fantastical concept that
Yes.
their initial thought was they were going to disprove it.
Yes. Yeah.
And
So
so
there is some of that too, and I hope people enjoy that part, because I feel like initially, of course, they're just might as well talk about it. So it's two explorers, and one of them's a reporter and one of them's a professor, and they both go looking for this wealthy recluse who's been missing for 20 years. He's been missing from society. He was very wealthy, very prominent, and they think they've tracked him to a cave in the desert. And so when they get there, of course, this is the book, of course, tackles what happens when they actually do arrive. So, is it really what it seems? Is it really a cave? Is he living in a cave like a savage, or what's going on? So, I'm hoping that people will some of it will resonate. I mean, I know kind of it's a little. It came off as kind of old fashioned in a way, but some of that's because I've read The Most Dangerous Game. So, but so that's partly it came off as almost like you couldn't really tell what time period it was set in at first. And that doesn't bother me one bit. I don't care if people can't tell and it doesn't bother them. That's great. But I think it's kind of like wanting it to be one of those stories that hopefully people will be reading years from now. I hope. I hope.
Yeah, it felt pretty timeless to me. It didn't bother me about a specific, time frame or anything like that. But it did feel like they were on, almost like somebody trying to, on this lost search for Atlantis. It was like they were being told this story and they couldn't
Yes.
quite believe. And so it was more like they were like, well, we're the people that are going to prove that this is just a story. It's not really true. And which really drew me in, because through the whole book you're trying to figure out what is really true and what is the story, and how much of the story makes you perceive what is and what is not true, which is kind of a mind bender in itself.
Yes, and I hope that's true. I'm hoping people aren't sitting there going, "Oh God, I can tell already what's going to happen." But
no, I don't think they can.
Yeah. So and it's I just wanted it to be fun. I wanted people to be immersed in it and have enjoyed it when they reach the end and think, wow, that was a fun little world to be in for a little while, and I hope it makes them want to pick up something else. I know I don't have any other suspense thrillers currently. Haven't not ruled out writing another one in the future, but I do mostly write sci-fi, so hopefully they also like sci-fi. But like I said, I haven't ruled out another one in the future.
Well, and for those of you listening, this is a big hint that that's going to be dependent on the good reviews that she gets on this book.
Yes, possibly. And
the more you guys talk about it, the more she's likely to follow it up.
Right. Yeah, and I can't rule out it being tied into this one either. I can't rule that out. But I don't want to say anything specific because I haven't actually planned anything out, and I haven't actually thought. I really want to write this book, so maybe in the future. But yeah, if people really love it and it resonates with them, I wouldn't want to disappoint them. Of course, I would consider it. But
well, let's talk about the series that you have, which is The Sin of the Vial. You have book 1 and book 2. The first one, right. The series title named The Sin of the Vial and The Blood Hotel. So those are a little darker, a little more deeper into the kind of the thriller, if you will, so to speak.
Yes, they are, and I think if you're reading them, I mean, you can definitely tell there is a sci-fi element, but I also I kind of wanted it to be very character oriented, and I know with The House of Windleft, of course, it was an all male cast, and that was a challenge to write as well because I wanted them to be believable as men, not just characters. So for Descent of the Vial and The Blood Hotel, though, they're told mainly from one character's perspective, and of course he is a male. Not any real reason. That's just the it seemed like that's the perspective the story was coming from for some reason when I started to write it. And I wanted that to be, again, believable as a male. I know I'm not a male, so that is a challenge. But I did a lot of research to be sure that I did hopefully do the character justice and make sure he does respond to things as a male would.
Can you give us like the 5-second just explanation of the story behind these two books?
Sure. So The Sin of the Vial starts out with a photographer who's having a really bad day. Things just aren't going right. And he's leaving this job, and when he's leaving, I'm trying to think how to do this without giving anything away. So he's leaving this job, and he's about to get on a tram that's taking him out to the parking lot of the place he's been shooting. He pounds on the back door, thing stops, door opens, and what he sees is kind of not really what he expects to see, I suppose. It sort of leads off from there. So he ends up encountering this threat that he ends up fleeing from, and he rescues a woman on the way out of town. The two of them end up going on this epic journey, and he's wondering, at first, they're just, let's just get out of here. Let's be safe. After a certain point, they start to think, okay, how long are we going to keep doing this? What are we going to do? Do we want to keep running forever? Can we? Or should we try to do something to end the threat? And so then the Blood Hotel takes place about 5 years after the events in the Descent of the Vile. So they think the threat is over. And then when they're just jogging on the beach one day, and they and realize that no, that it's not gone.
And this is more of a supernatural force that they're fighting against. Is that correct?
It is. It's a. I don't want to give away too much. It's not supernatural. It's more of a sci-fi element, but so they do. It's an actual physical thing that they're fleeing, and it's not. I don't, like I said, I don't want to give away too much, but yeah. So they.
Well, we have to know sort of what the story's about to want to read it.
Exactly. I know, for sure, and but yeah, it's an actual physical thing that they're running from, and it could spell doom for the entire planet if they leave it alone. So it's either do something to end the threat and save the last of humanity, or stay safe themselves. And do they put themselves at risk, or do they not? And the same thing with the Blood Hotel. The threat has returned. Is it on us again to do this, or should we let somebody else do it?
All right. Awesome. Well, that sounds great. And then, of course, you have this newly released book, and I'm calling the title is Chimera.
Chimera.
I got close.
Again, there it is again. Okay. This one is about a guy who is leaving on a long journey into space, which he hates space. He hates traveling in space. But a ship has been destroyed in the outer reaches of the solar system. He's going to investigate. So all evidence points in one direction, that it's the elusive Benoth culture that's actually threatening them. But is that really the case? And so there's a threat that's actually affecting the fleet. And so it's basically up to him. Is he going to save Earth and the fleet, or is he going to, of course, not succeed in time and just in discovering what's going on? But it's a really quick read. It moves really fast. That is kind of the point. I wanted it to be a little more fun to read, not as dark, not as, because, just in case. I feel like, I was kind of, but not just because I think people are tired of it, but just because it was fun to write in between all of that. So I just wanted something that was a little more lighthearted to write. So,
okay, well, I'm gonna ask you an interesting question. So, is it a little more Star Wars and Star Trek, or is it a little more Space Odyssey?
Good question. I'm not sure. I think it's probably leaning more in the Star Trek arena than it is Star Wars. It's there's not really the fantasy element that Star Wars has, so it's probably more Star Trek. But it's not hard sci-fi, though. I mean, there's still space travel, but it's possible to do it in this length of time that I've written. So definitely not hard sci-fi, because they're doing it in a few days or weeks rather. So it's not hard sci-fi, but I think it was fun to write in between these really dark books, and so hopefully people will enjoy it as well. I hope they'll think it's a fun read. It's really short, like the House of Windlass, so it's not a long book. Hopefully people can read it in the night as well.
Well, and I love these books, and I'm not sure if you realize, but all of your books have the common dilemma: do you do the right thing or save yourself?
Yes. And actually, and it's, I don't know if it's really intentional or not, but I do feel like, you know, people are complicated, and
Mhm.
what's right for one person may not be right for another. So, you know, are you even capable of doing this thing?
Mhm.
You know, I'm not sure I would be. I've got lots of health issues, which make it difficult to do certain things. The stamina that Jackson uses it to be able to get through this in the Descent of the Violent, the Blood Hotel, or definitely hard on him because he's an older person, and I do like to write older main characters. So most of the time, not always, but so he's in his 40s. You know, it's just I don't think I make it abundantly clear in Descent of the Violent, but I do mention that in the Blood Hotel he is in his 40s. So he is. It's taking a toll on his body, and I do mention that throughout the story is that he's having a difficult time with some of the things he's had to do, but whether he succeeds or not is up to the reader to determine when they read the book. But I also feel like older main characters aren't always used very much in genre fiction.
Mhm.
So kind of want them to be out there. Their lives aren't over just because they're older.
Yeah, we don't
And
have stop having adventures at 30.
right, of course, yeah, exactly. So I do have some that are in their 30s or mid 30s and up, and then of course I have some in their 40s and even 50s, and I enjoyed writing that perspective because I feel like that's closer to what I'm used to. That's what I know as a 52-year-old author, and I feel like people need to think of us people still, that we're not just static. We haven't just retired and gone off into the sunset and that's it. That we still want to have these active lives and still do things, although not necessarily saving the world, but or maybe we do. Some of us, I don't know, maybe we do, but not necessarily with the particular threats these people are facing. But I still feel like there's a lot to be done. I mean, you can contribute a lot, and people need to know that. So
Well, and I love that because it's very encouraging to us to not just take a back seat as we
yeah,
get older to be in the game. So I want to know if you could go all the way back to the beginning when you began this journey of writing and publishing, what do you wish you'd known or that somebody had told you?
I really, really wish somebody had, you know, I guess given me some of the tools that I now have, as far as being able to, uh, not just like vetting contracts and stuff, but because I feel like some of that is you know you don't always have a whole lot of choice if you don't have an agent as far as the contract goes, but you can try to negotiate your own. But as far as being able to do that, if I had known how to, it would have been helpful.
Mhm.
Um, Also, I feel like um, if I had known about, like, say, writer beware and things like that, would have been very helpful in the early days. I haven't actually run into any people who have been trying to scam me. I've been very, very, very lucky, but I don't want to be in a position where I don't know that stuff exists, or
Mhm.
that. So I wish somebody had told me about stuff like that. It would have been helpful and saved a lot of anxiety, because without knowing, I just felt like a little lost, and like I didn't really know what I was doing. But I
Well,
did
and
do a lot of research.
yeah, you're at the
Yeah,
mercy of the people controlling those things. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I did do a lot of research, I will say, because I didn't want to be taken advantage of. So, but I didn't know where to go. So just basically Googling this stuff, and I feel like I found some good resources, through the source of to the process of doing that. Agent Query was one of the ones I looked at for agents, but which I'm still using. They had a lot of information about contracts, and so you understand what the terms mean. And even coming from a legal background as I do, it's still entertainment law is very different than anything I've done before. So understanding what the terms mean and all of that was very helpful. Even if I didn't actually change the contract, I still knew what I was getting into. Um, and I also feel like it had information about how to query if I do decide to query.
Mhm.
There's information on how to do that. And it was there's just a lot of info, and then of course writer beware. You don't want to end up with somebody not really got your best interest at heart, and especially when it comes to publishers, even contests. If you decide to enter contests for your writing, you don't want to end up sending it to somebody who is just going to take your money and not do anything with it. So I feel like if I had had those two resources early on, it would have been very, very helpful as far as.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I'm going to add a couple of resources to that list,
Sure.
especially for our listeners. So, if you're contemplating a contract now, I don't know how much legal advice they will give you, but I do know as members of the Author Guild, they will review contracts and point out weaknesses and maybe some areas that you may not understand what you're giving away. So that is a very helpful service that the Authors Guild is providing to their members. So I highly recommend people becoming members of the Authors Guild. They have a lot of good benefits to their members, and that is one of the bigger ones that I hear about is, because a lot of times trying to find a entertainment contract lawyer is very, very difficult, and they tend to be very expensive. So at least this is a place where you can go and get some advice. A lot of the writers groups have that, but they do specifically have that as one of the benefits for their members. But also it's like, there are tools out there that people don't even think about using. And one of the ones that I tell people, especially after you're a published author, I mean, Writer Beware is amazing. But individually you can set up Google alerts for your book titles, for your author name, for specific characters and stuff like that, so that it alerts you anytime somebody's using that. And I had a client of mine that we set that up for them before their book published. And within 4 months, they were contacting me and going, hey, I have somebody listing my book and I don't know who they are. And it was a pirate company that had pirated their book. And
That
so we
happened
were
to me.
able to quickly track it down and have them take down that that pirated publication. So these are some of the things that you can do to protect yourself, whether you are traditionally published or whether you are self-published or hybrid published or anything in between. The onus is on you. These large companies do not have the wherewithal to protect all of their authors and writers. So take advantage of some of these tools that are out there to kind of help you.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd also mention Copyright Alliance, because when they did pirate my book, because of course they did, I think it happens to a lot of people. When they did, of course, then they had the tools for me to get them to take it down, because I did, there was a button or something that you could click to say, please take this down, but they never responded. I mean, they weren't responding. And so with them, I was able to get the information I needed to get to the registered agent. And so I could get the registered agent for that person, then I can have them take it down. And then that did work. So they did take it down.
Yes, exactly. But a lot of times,
but the Google
alert, first alert that's happening, to get the earliest alert that is even happening, is probably Google alerts. And then of course you can go to as you said, the copyright registry. And get that information verified, which is all helpful. They're all steps on the ladder to get you to need to be and protect yourself. So that's amazing. So what do you think readers are going to think about your breadth and width of your books in 10 to 20 years from now?
I don't know. I mean, I think that they're the themes are kind of universal. I mean, there's nothing that's really too out there or anything, but I mean, I think they'll think there are some interesting sci-fi stories or suspense stories. I hope they'll stand the test of time. In 20 years they'll be talking about it still. But I mean, I try to make it relevant, and I try to make it to where it's not necessarily going to be too topical, where it won't be an issue down the line. I do want it to be something that people are going to find something in, whether they pick it up now or 20 years from now. So they're not necessarily talking about current events or anything. They take place, in their own time. And so, whether that be, the present or whether it be the future or whatever is a separate thing. So, um, I feel like I left enough open to interpretation that they could still be relevant later. So, and I do that on purpose because I like it when an author leaves enough to the imagination that I can create a world, in my head as I read.
Mhm.
And it's not that I don't like description, I do, but I feel like just give me a little bit and then I'll create the rest of it.
Right. Sometimes you have to trust your readers, and it's a very good lesson for people who are writing, and they're putting very specific, what I would call date stamps in their books, where they're talking
Right.
about specific
Yeah.
historical events, unless you're writing about that historical
Yeah,
event
if
or
you
it has
are,
some
that's great.
actual relevance to the story. If it's just background
Yes.
in your story, you want to be very careful about that. Also, using like, I mean, I have a whole other conversation about using, registered and copyrighted and, logos and names and stuff like that. I mean, there's a different thing, but a lot of times using more generic names or terms or made up, will help alleviate that kind of date stamp, because it's like, if you're using the name of a popular restaurant throughout your book and then that popular restaurant goes out of business,
Yeah.
and you're
And you
trying
just
to sell
dated
that
your
book
book.
5 years from now, people are like going, well, that one hasn't been around for,
Yeah.
a decade. It's like,
Yeah,
so yeah.
exactly. And I feel like, if you're writing historical fiction, like you're saying, people do want to know what that place looked like. They do want the vivid descriptions, but I do agree that it has to be relevant to the story. Otherwise, you're just bogging down the story to some degree. And so,
Mhm.
if it's not relevant, you know, the reader can create some of the stuff in their head, set the scene, and you can do it as you're going. I try to do that. I don't know how successful I am, but I try to have the descriptions of the place come out as the action takes place and not necessarily having a whole paragraph describing the scene and then the action moves on. I don't like to do that if I can help it.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
like
it's
Wiley, for example, running his hand along the wall. That's something that happened in the House of Windliff, and I don't necessarily mention that at the beginning, but through the course of the story, of course, you discover more what the place looks like and what he finds when he's there. So I feel like it's possible to do it to some degree. I don't know how successful, like I said, but I'm trying. So,
well, when I talk about this when I'm working with writing groups, is I'm like, there are different ways to be descriptive, and you have to consider that you could have three people walk into the same room. One is an artist, one's a photographer, and one of them is an interior designer. They're all going to describe that exact same room
yeah,
differently because their focus is based on what they find valuable and important. So that
right,
is generally
definitely,
more helpful in not only getting the description across, but developing that character with
yes,
description that is not about themselves. So,
right, yeah,
uh,
I agree.
you know,
Yeah, having there be some sort of perception in there, something that's unique to that character.
Mhm.
Whether they hate that shade of green that's on the curtains or whatever, it does say something about both the character and the scene.
Exactly. Exactly. And, how much is too much and how much is enough? Well, that's hard to say. It depends on
Yeah,
how you tell the story. I mean, if you tell the story through description and inanimate objects, well, then you're going to have a whole lot more description than you have somebody telling it through action and emotions. So you kind of have to weigh that. It's like if it feels like it's
yeah,
drudgery to read through it, then it's probably too much. If you
yes.
can't at least visualize an echo of that scene, then it's not enough. So,
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's and especially with sci-fi that
mhm,
that usually there's some world building that has to take place. So you know usually there's going to be a little bit more description
mhm.
depending on which well, there's different kinds of sci-fi, so I guess, like I said, it depends, but usually there's going to be at least a little bit more. And so but you don't want to bog the reader down with details either, so I feel like letting them get a sense of the world that you've created through you know, maybe technology or something, but without getting into too much detail, so that where they're like, okay, I don't really care how it works, I just care that it works, you know. But you know, like, it's just something, some sort of something that anchors the world a little bit. Just one major thing, and you long as you get that one major thing, they'll get the rest of it. But I just feel like
you know, and I love the Star Trek analogy of that. It's like, you know, how many different Star Treks did they have before they actually explained how the warp core worked, or the tricorder, or the transporter? It's like,
and they don't.
They worked.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, you know, like it's supposed to be fun too. And I, you know, even if it helps you think, it's still escapism to some degree. And I love sci-fi for that reason. It's fun to read and it makes you think at the same time. It's great. But I still feel like you know, at the end of the day, there's going to be some imagination in there. There's going to be something that you created that's not necessarily real, and it may not ever be real. But I still think that's it's amazing what some of these, because I'm not necessarily saying I'm the best sci-fi author out there. I'm probably not, actually, but some of the authors that I admire, you know, some of the stuff they come up with is just like, wow, you know, how did you come up with that? How did you think of that? You know, and I just love it. So you know, and you know, even some of the fantasy writers that I read, because I do read some fantasy as well. I haven't yet written a fantasy story, and I may in the future. Will not rule it out.
Well, you know, I mean, what did they say? You know, the mother of invention is need, and it's like somewhere in your story you need somebody to be able to go from the ship to the planet in seconds. So transporter.
The transporter. Yeah, exactly. Or being able to diagnose somebody's illness really quickly. Well, of course, you don't have time to, you know, run all these tests. So yeah, there's the tricorder. Yay! Yeah, exactly. we got the answer we needed. Oh yeah, he has this in his system, and that makes sense. You know, and in this, for the sake of the story, it moves the plot along. You know, number one. But I also feel like it gives us a sense of what they find important. So in this world, you know, they find that sort of thing. You know, they don't want to wait for those kind of results. They shouldn't have to. And so they value people to at least that degree, and the same thing with the safety. There's like it's a lot of episodes of Star Trek about the transporter and when it goes wrong and stuff. But so it's kind of, it shows that, you know, you're a little scared of the new technology as well. So it's scary, but you know, most of the time it works. But there could something could go wrong.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember how far. I think it was somewhere in like the second or third season of the second series that they actually talk about how it works. I mean, they talk about all of the problems and, you know, and things that could happen, but they never actually talk about how it works. Which I thought was just amazing that they got by that long without explaining.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that is great. Yeah, it is crazy. But you know, that just says, you know, one thing about it in general is that it's enduring, and people still, you know, even if they don't necessarily know, they still love it, and they still want to, you know, follow these characters. And that's another thing about it, is very character driven, which is one thing that I really liked about it, because you learn to like the characters. And if you don't like the characters, you're not going to watch the series. And
and I think this goes back to talking about, you know, the suspension of disbelief. It's like, as long as you foreshadowed you know, the trust and the ability of that character and that storyteller, you know, your reader's going to go with you. They want you to succeed. They want the character to succeed. So they're going to go down that rabbit hole with you. So I mean, this is a great conversation, but we need to keep moving. So I wanted to know what kind of obstacles or challenges that you had when you were writing and publishing your books.
So mainly, I found a publisher fairly quickly, you know, which I did mention, but I feel like the main thing is that they were a small publisher, so they don't really have the budget for marketing. They don't have the budget for promotion or anything like that. So most of that has come, from me, and I don't have a degree in marketing. I don't really know a lot about marketing, so that's been a challenge for me. Is being able to get the word out there that my books exist, and hoping people will want to read them if they hear about them. You don't know that they will, but you can hope they will.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, finding those sci-fi readers has been difficult as well. And just putting the book up there on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, whatever, it doesn't mean they're going to find it or want to read it. So
Right.
That's my biggest thing for me.
Right. And we talked a little bit about it in the green room. And if they've been watching the Writer's Parachute for any other time, they know that this is something that I say all the time. Marketing is often approached from the wrong direction. People will see how other people market and they'll think, oh, well, they did great with it. I'll go out there and jump on that bandwagon. But the problem is they generally end up with different results, or they end up with results they weren't expecting. And this is what I'm talking about. So when you're thinking about doing marketing or promotion, think about what it is you want first. Do you want more sales of your book? Do you want more readers? Do you want more reviews? Do you want more people to know about your book? Do you want to be going from like a local newspaper or radio station or TV station to a regional or a national TV station? Do you want to go from small podcasts to bigger podcasts? Do you want to speak at conferences? What is it that you want? And then you have to decide that and then tailor your marketing and promotion towards that result. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to always be 100% successful. And there are always these serendipitous moments that happen, that we talked about in the green room.
We did,
at least you are focusing your dollars on what it is you want instead of just spending dollars hoping that you get the result you want when that may not have been possible in the first place. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that was, obviously it's been a learning curve, but luckily the books are still out. I mean, it's not like, they're going to go away anytime really soon. So hopefully, people can discover them later, and that would be fine with me. So there's room for trial and error. There is. I think a lot of people want that instant gratification, and that would be great if it happened, but it's not something that I'm necessarily expecting. So it's really okay. So if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out right away. But I do. I'm hoping to be around for a while, and I have lots and lots of ideas for stories that I still want to write. So.
Well, and I think sometimes there's an element that people forget about. I'm a prolific reader as much as I am a writer. So I love authors that I can depend on, that are regularly publishing and writing books. So I know what kind of stories and styles to their writing they have, and it doesn't matter what genre they're writing in. It's like I kind of feel like I know them, and I can trust that when I go and see they have a new book that I'm going to like it.
Yes, exactly. And
especially if love it. So
and sometimes I discover them mid-career. So and then in a way that's great, because then I can discover the back catalog. If I read their back catalog and I like it, then of course I'm gonna keep an eye out for them when they release something new. And so I think that's great too, and so in a way it's good, because then if you discover them after they've published a few, then you already know they've got some longevity because they've already released a few. So chances of them continuing to write is pretty good. If you find a debut author, sometimes they continue to write, sometimes they don't. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, not even close. I love finding books from people that especially if it's their first one, and sometimes you can see a lot of promise, and sometimes they're your new favorite author, and you never know what they're going to do. And it's exciting when they do put out a new book. You're like, because now you're learning more about them, and that's is this going to be like the first one? Is it going to be totally different? And it's, I don't know. I love reading too. I read a lot. So.
Well, this is one of my favorite sayings. It's like being an author, writing a book, publishing a book is a marathon. It is not a sprint. There
Right.
is no quick finish line. And again, if you don't reach that goal this year or this month, there's always the next and the one after. And we get better each time we do a new book and a new story and a new genre and a new whatever. So you're learning and you're building. It's like some of my favorite authors, I go back and read some of their early catalog, and you can kind of see them growing and maturing into their bestseller selves. And so it gives you a lesson in that patience and perseverance. And so again, this goes back to what we're talking about: marketing or promotion. What do you want? What is realistic? Going, it's like, this is my first book and I want it to be a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah, exactly. And it could happen.
It's possible, but not highly probable.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that with a small press, it's the chances of that are probably not as good as for me anyway, as for someone else. But of course, the book's been out since 2021, so it's the latest award didn't happen till actually February. So you never know when it's going to happen. When people are gonna start picking it up and reading it. Then obviously they could start reading it now, or more of them now, because the awards were announced, and because so my old email address is very unreliable. I cannot always send replies, and I don't always receive all mail. So they may have notified me, and I didn't get it because my email is so screwy. So I just went on the website, saw that I won the award, and I'm like, what? So, it was the 2022 Indies Today Awards, and I got an honorable mention, which is good for a novella. I'm really surprised that they gave it any attention at all. And most of the other ones I think were novels. I think that's usually what wins the awards, as far as the top of the ones, as far as these kind of things. So I'm surprised they listed it at all, and I'm really honored. But it's and then you see something like that, and then it's like you think what's possible now. You're like, well, maybe I should try for some other ones, and maybe people really do like my writing. Maybe it's really not as bad as I think it is sometimes. But actually, no, that's not true. I actually enjoy reading my stories, and so that people think I'm weird because I don't mind revising them. But for some reason, I don't mind reliving these moments with my characters. It doesn't bother me, to go back and read it again. It doesn't. I'm weird that way. So I hope that means that other people will like them too if I like them. It does mean that of course, I do revise them a lot, because I go through them several times before I even send them to my readers. And even then, after I get them back, I'm like, okay, gotta change that. But it's not like a laborious process for me to revise something. I don't mind doing it. I've been told that's strange. So
all right, well, we're kind of running out of time here, so let me see if we can get to some of these other questions I have for you. So what would be your best advice for other authors and writers?
I would say definitely do research. You don't want to just take the first offer that comes. Definitely not. And if somebody does want to publish your work, you want to know what to expect. And I think that researching the publishers, researching the agents, or whoever, depending on what route you're taking, is extremely important. And we did name some of the resources that I was using. So I think that definitely doing some of that background research before you submit is important. So decide what route you want to go, like what route is for you. And sometimes you have to do some background research to decide. But I wouldn't say rule out a small press, and I wouldn't say rule out traditional or self-publishing, whichever, because everybody's, what you want is different. So I feel like, but even if you just decide to self-publish, there's still going to be other hands in the pot that you need to make sure you know what those are going to be and how they're going to affect you and what you do. So, you know, I just feel like researching, even if you're just going to have it professionally edited, you need to know what to expect. So
Okay.
I would say research.
Great advice. So here on season 2, we've been focusing on reviews. And so we would love for you to give us a review of your book, The House of Winlift.
Okay. So I don't usually write very long reviews when I do review stuff. So I would probably say it's a dark and creepy mystery to some degree. It's a quick, short read, but that will probably keep you up at night. um, I hope people will read it in one sitting, but so hopefully they'll also, I can say that they, if you read it in one sitting, that it will definitely stay with you for days afterwards. So I hope that's the case anyway.
Great job, 5 stars. And why we do focus here on the writer's parachute about reviews is we want to let authors and writers know that they're very important, but we also want to let listeners know that they're very important to the author in getting them known, getting them seen, getting people to purchase and buy their books. So we encourage you the next time that you read a good book or even not such a good book to leave a review. Let the author know what you think about it. Help the author gain traction. And it's also to show you how simple and easy it is. We are putting these guests on the spot, asking them to review their book, which is not easy. People don't like talking about themselves. So it's not an easy task, yeah. But they all manage to do it. So reviews can be complicated or simple as you would like. Simply, I like this book, or I think somebody such as this would enjoy this book, or I recommend this book to X is perfectly fine. Or if you would like to go into more detail, you certainly can. But they are simple, but they are so invaluable to authors and writers. We are introducing you to all kinds of new authors and writers that you may not have heard about, their books that you may not have heard about. So do help them out. Go check out their books, leave them a review. We encourage everyone to do that. So what's coming up next for you, Cheryl?
Well, I just released the Chimera Gambit not that long ago. So next I'm actually querying. So I have a novel that's a bit different for me. I'm going to see if I can actually get an agent this time around. I haven't really heard back yet, but it's a bit early. I just got it finished and got it read, and I've been revising it a little at a time. But I that's what I'm gonna do. It's called Void Pirates. I don't know. I don't know where it's gonna. It could be coming out next. You know, I couldn't say because I'm still querying that one. But then I also have. I can't rule out that there might be a third book in Descent of the Vile. I had pictured it being just the 2 books, but I have a friend who read The Blood Hotel and basically said, "You can't leave it here." So she's like, "You can't." So I may write a third Descent of the Vile book. And you know, like I said, I may not rule out a tie-in to The House of Winlift. I can't rule now. The Chimera Gambit is a standalone, so if you do pick that one up, you don't have to get anything else. But it's very different than my other books, so keep that in mind. I also have another series which I have not started querying yet, called "The City That Disappeared," and I'm still revising that one. So it's not ready, but hopefully not too long from now. And then
all right. Well, of course, we'd love to have you come back on here when any one of those or some of those are ready, and we can talk more about them. So where can listeners find your books?
Most of the online bookstores are carrying them. I have so I have Amazon, Barnes and Noble, trying to remember, Book Depository, I think, has it as well. Let's see, what's the name of that one? I use it all the time. Well, Indie Bound is one, and then
Mhm.
the one that gives away books too. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, there's one that it's like a charity thing so you buy a book, they give a book,
Mhm.
and I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it, but I use it all. And it's really sad when you're on the spot. Suddenly, all of a sudden, your mind just goes blank.
That's okay. But for those of you
Yeah,
in the listening audience, just be assured we will have the links to her
yeah, yeah,
books on all platforms. So don't really worry about that. And,
yeah.
you
You
know,
can get
and for those
audiobooks on
of you,
Google Play.
for
So
all of you who do not know, the IndieBound is the clearinghouse for all of the small book independent bookstores. So generally, if a book is listed on IndieBound, you can go to your independent bookstore, and if they do not have it in stock, they can order it for you.
yes,
So
that's true.
we do want to support independent bookstores as well as the big retailers. So I'm glad you included that. So I know you're also out on social media. So where can they connect with you there?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. Um, Looking into Threads, but I haven't actually added it yet, so I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
But I'm on those, and then there's a writers group, which I probably shouldn't mention unless you're a writer. You probably don't want to follow me on there. But yeah, so those are the main ones right now, and I have a
Okay.
website as well.
Okay, awesome. And we'll have all of that stuff listed for you in the show notes so you can connect with Cheryl on social media. You can find out about stuff on her website. And then you had more information for them on your website. Was that true?
Yeah, you can. I usually post there before I post on social media. So usually, if you subscribe to the website, you'll get updates before anyone else. So I try to keep that for my loyal readers on the website. So I have there's pages there for upcoming events. So if I do have any events coming up, then they're going to be on there. I do have links to my published work on some of, usually just Amazon, but I do have some of the links on there as well. But yeah, so you can get there, and then I have a blog on there also. So anytime I have any little news or just a little photo to share or whatever, I'll put that on there too.
Awesome. Well, we love
Yeah.
that. Is there anything else that you would like to include before we jump over to our tip of the week?
Oh, well, let's see. So, oh, I thought of something earlier and now it's gone because that's what happens to me. So my mind just goes blank. Um, I don't know. I suppose just if you like sci-fi, there's lots and lots of sci-fi authors out there that are indie authors, and I think that a lot of them have really great books, and they just don't get the recognition. Give them a chance. Be sure to pick up an indie book today.
All right, awesome. Well, and of course, we do recommend Cheryl's book, encourage you guys to go out and check those out. So let's go ahead and jump over to our tip of the week. So Cheryl talked a lot about marketing and promotion, and specifically, she was talking about budgets. And I know she was talking about the budget of her small press, but I want to talk about that budgeting. And it brings up a very critical, or a couple of critical things that I find that authors miss in their journey between writing the book and publishing the book. A couple of things that you really need to make sure that you have, and it's never too late to add them. If you don't have them now, you can definitely do them and add them now. Number one is make sure you have a media kit. Media kits are not complicated. It is basically introducing you to whoever may be wanting to interview you. It's I'm the author. This is about me. You write it for the book anyway, put it in your media kit. Here's my book and or books. This is what they're about. Here's links to them. Also, here's all my social media. Here's my website. Here's important interviews I've already done so you can see how well I conduct myself during an interview. That's kind of it. Maybe a few extra images of your book in different formats. This is what is important anytime you're looking for somebody to interview you or for somebody to write an article about you. This is a wealth of knowledge that you can easily create and put into a PDF format to hand over to them, and it has all the information that they need. So make sure you have a media kit. Make sure you're updating it as you grow as an author, write more books, have more interviews, do more things. The second one is to create a marketing plan. Marketing and promotion are almost interchangeable, not quite, but they are almost. So have a plan. Think about where you would find the readers who like your genre. Is, she talked about sci-fi. Well, where do you find sci-fi writers? Well, I think you'd find them in a lot of the Comic-Con type things, different cosplay events, those kinds of things. There are also different kinds of magazines, newspapers, blogs, and stuff that are specifically geared towards those types of things, as they are with any genre. This is where some research comes in. Look to find where those people are. See if you can reach out to them. Can you be included in their newsletter? Could you do a advertisement through them? Could you speak to their group? Could you be included on one of their mailings? Could you be included on a sample chapter coming from one of your books that they're offering to their members? These are things, again, they're a little outside the lines. Of course, you want to have some of your marketing, just the general stuff, want to make sure you get on a few podcasts, maybe have an article written in your local newspaper, local TV station. It's another thing, really pretty easy to write a press release. Make sure you write those press releases. And it doesn't only have to be written when you have a new book coming out. When you win an award, you could do a new press release. When you have some new event you have coming up around your book or your writing, you could do a press release. They're pretty easy. There is a free place that you can go and write a press release and get it distributed out there. It's prlog.org. That's prlog.org. I'll put that in the show notes for you, where you can go. They even give you samples of how to write a press release and how to distribute it. So find some of these things, but try to have a plan. I mean, it doesn't have to be concrete. It doesn't have to be detailed, but have some plan of attack. We don't go on vacation without knowing where we're going and what things we're going to see. Same thing with your book. Have a plan of attack. How am I going to get my book to the right readers? I wouldn't be trying to advertise my children's book on the outside of a bar. That
right,
would not be compatible.
Yeah, you want to find people who are going to love it, right? Obviously, you want to find the people who are going to love it. That's the point. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So again, make sure you're thinking a little bit outside the box. A little, you want a variety. You want some common things, some uncommon things, but then also you want to think outside the box, because your book is unique and it should have a unique plan, just like it did when you were writing it. So that's my tip of the week. Of course, I could talk more and more about this subject. If you would like to have us do a special episode about this particular topic, then let me know. Until then, I want to thank Cheryl for being with us this week. And as always, I am so grateful to be the host here on the Writer's Parachute, guiding author and writer dreams to a perfect landing. We hope that you find this is a safe, creative space for you to land your dreams too. Until next time, bye.
Bye.